The first Turkish president, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, 1923 to 1938. Part 5. The Balkan Pact provided for regular military and diplomatic consultations. The importance of the agreement is best seen in a message Ataturk sent to the Greek premier Ioannis Metaxas. The borders of the Allies in the Balkan Pact are a single border. Those who covet this border will encounter the burning beams of the sun. I recommend avoiding this. The forces that defend our borders are a single and inseparable force. The Balkan Pact was signed by the GNA on the 28th of February. The Greek and Yugoslav parliaments ratified the agreement a few days later. The unanimously ratified Balkan Pact was formally adopted on the 18th of May 1935 and lasted until 1940. The Balkan Pact turned out to be ineffective for reasons that were beyond Ataturk's control. The pact failed when Bulgaria attempted to raise the Dobruja issue, only to end with the Italian invasion of Albania on the 7th of April 1939. These conflicts spread rapidly, eventually triggering World War II. The goal of Ataturk to protect Southeast Europe failed with the dissolution of the pact. In 1938, the Turkish army at peacetime strength consisted of 174,000 soldiers and 20,000 officers, forming 11 army corps, 23 divisions, 1 armored brigade, 3 cavalry brigades, and 7 frontier commands. During the second half of the 1930s, Ataturk tried to form a closer relationship with Britain. The risks of this policy change put the two men at odds. The Hatay issue and the Lyon Agreement were two important developments in foreign policy that played a significant role in severing relations between Ataturk and Inonu. In 1936, Ataturk raised the issue of Hatay at the League of Nations. Hatay was based on the old administrative unit of the Ottoman Empire called the Sanjak of Alexandretta. On behalf of the League of Nations, the representatives of France, the United Kingdom, the Netherlands, Belgium, and Turkey prepared a constitution for Hatay, which established it as an autonomous Sanjak within Syria. Despite some inter-ethnic violence, an election was conducted in 1938 by the local legislative assembly. The cities of Antakya Antioch and Iskenderun Alexandretta joined Turkey in 1939. Ataturk instigated economic policies to develop small and large-scale businesses, but also to create social strata, i.e. industrial bourgeoisie coexisting with the peasantry of Anatolia that were virtually non-existent during the Ottoman Empire. The primary problem faced by the politics of his period was the lag in the development of political institutions and social classes which would steer such social and economic changes. Ataturk's vision regarding early Turkish economic policy was apparent during the Izmir Economic Congress of 1923. The initial choices of Ataturk's economic policies reflected the realities of his time. After World War I, due to the lack of any real potential investors to fund private sector industry, Ataturk established many state-owned factories for agriculture, machinery, and textile industries. Ataturk and İsmet İnönü's pursuit of state-controlled economic policies was guided by a national vision. Their goal was to knit the country together, eliminate foreign control of the economy, and improve communications within Turkey. Resources were channeled away from Istanbul, a trading port with international foreign enterprises, in favor of other, less developed cities in order to achieve a more balanced economic development throughout the country. For Ataturk and his supporters, tobacco remained wedded to his pursuit of economic independence. Turkish tobacco was an important industrial crop, but its cultivation and manufacture had been under French monopolies granted by capitulations of the Ottoman Empire. The tobacco and cigarette trade was controlled by two French companies, the Regi Company and Nargile Tobacco. The Ottoman Empire had given the tobacco monopoly to the Ottoman Bank as a limited company under the Council of the Public Debt. Regi, as part of the council, had control over tobacco production, storage, and distribution, including export with unchallenged price control. Consequently, Turkish farmers were dependent on the company for their livelihoods. In 1925, Regi was taken over by the state and named Tekel. Government control of tobacco was one of the greatest achievements of the Kemalist political machinery's nationalization of the economy for a country that did not produce oil. Kemalists accompanied this achievement with the development of the country's cotton industry, which peaked during the early 1930s. Cotton was the second most important industrial crop in Turkey at the time. In 1924, with the initiative of Ataturk, the first Turkish bank İş Bankası was established, with Ataturk as the bank's first member. The bank's creation was a response to the growing need for a truly national establishment and a banking system which was capable of backing up economic activities, managing funds accumulated through policies of savings incentives, and offering resources where necessary to trigger industrial impetus. In 1927, Turkish State Railways was established. Because Ataturk considered the development of a national rail network as another important step in industrialization, railways were given high priority. The Turkish State Railway developed an extensive railway network in a very short time. Weasel words. The Turkish government under Ataturk developed many economic and infrastructure projects within the first decade of the republic. However, the Turkish economy was still largely agrarian, with primitive tools and methods. Roads and transportation facilities were still far from sufficient, and management of the economy was inefficient. The Great Depression brought many changes to this picture. The young republic, like the rest of the world, found itself in a deep economic crisis during the Great Depression. Ataturk reacted to conditions of this period by moving toward integrated economic policies and establishing a central bank to control exchange rates. However, Turkey could not finance essential imports. Its currency was shunned, and zealous revenue officials seized the meager possessions of peasants who could not pay their taxes. In 1929, Ataturk signed a treaty that resulted in the restructuring of Turkey's debt with the Ottoman Public Debt Administration. At the time, Ataturk not only had to deal with the payment of the Ottoman public debt but also the turbulent economic issues of the Great Depression. For example, until the early 1930s, Turkish private business could not acquire exchange credits. It was impossible to integrate the Turkish economy without a solution to these problems. In 1931, the Central Bank of the Republic of Turkey was established. The bank's primary purpose was to control the exchange rate, and Ottoman Bank's role during its initial years as a central bank was phased out. Later specialized banks such as the Summer Bank 1932 and the ET Bank 1935 were founded. From the political economy perspective, Ataturk faced the problem of political upheaval. The establishment of a new party with a different economic perspective was necessary. He asked Ali Fethi Okyar to meet this end. The Liberal Republican Party August 1930 was founded with a liberal program and proposed that state monopolies should be ended, foreign capital should be attracted, and state investment should be curtailed. Nevertheless, Ataturk maintained the view that it is impossible to attract foreign capital for essential development, and state capitalism became the dominant agenda during the Depression era. In 1931, Ataturk proclaimed, "In the economic area." The program of the party is statism. However, the effect of free republicans was felt strongly, and state intervention became more moderate and more akin to a form of state capitalism. One of Ataturk's radical left-wing supporters, Yakup Kadri Karyosmanoglu from the Kadri movement, claimed that Ataturk found a third way between capitalism and socialism. The first 1929 to 1933 and second five-year economic plans were enacted under the supervision of Ataturk. The first five-year economic plan promoted consumer substitution industries. However, these economic plans changed drastically with the death of Ataturk and the rise of World War II. Subsequent governments took measures that harmed the economic productivity of Turkey in various ways. The achievements of the 1930s were credited to early 1920s implementations of the economic system based on Ataturk's national policies. In 1931, Ataturk watched the development of the first national aircraft, MMV-1. He realized the important role of aviation and stated, "The future lies in the skies." The Turkish Aeronautical Association was founded on the 16th of February 1925 by his directive. He also ordered the establishment of the Turkish Aircraft Association lottery. Instead of the traditional raffle prizes, this new lottery paid money prizes. Most of the lottery income was used to establish a new factory and fund aviation projects. However, Ataturk did not live to see the flight of the first Turkish military aircraft built at that factory. Operational American Curtiss Hawk fighters were being produced in Turkey soon after his death and before the onset of World War II. In 1932, liberal economist Celal Bayar became the Minister of Economy at Ataturk's request and served until 1937. During this period, the country moved toward a mixed economy with its first private initiatives. Textile, sugar, paper, and steel factories financed by a loan from Britain were the private sectors of the period. Besides these businesses, government-owned power plants, banks, and insurance companies were established. In this period, Ataturk promoted public-private sector cooperation and the expansion of private businesses with private shareholders firms allowed to purchase shares in state-owned enterprises. In 1935, the first Turkish cotton print factory, Nazilli Calico Print Factory, opened. As part of the industrialization process, cotton planting was promoted to furnish raw material for future factory settlements. By 1935, Nazilli became a major industrial center beginning with the establishment of cotton mills followed by a calico print factory. In 1936, Turkish industrialist Nuri Demirel established the first Turkish aircraft factory in the Besiktas district of Istanbul. The first Turkish airplanes, Nu D-36 and Nu D-38, were produced in this factory. On the 25th of October 1937, Ataturk appointed Celal Bayar as the Prime Minister of the Ninth Government. Integrated economic policies reached their peak with the signing of the 1939 treaty with Britain and France. The treaty signaled a turning point in Turkish history since it was the first step towards an alliance with the West. After İsmet İnönü became president in 1938, the differences between İnönü, who promoted state control, and Bayar, who was liberal, came to the forefront. On the 25th of January 1939, Prime Minister Bayar resigned. Ataturk also supported the establishment of the automobile industry. The Turkish Automobile Association was founded in 1923, and its motto was, "The Turkish driver is a man of the most exquisite sensitivities." In 1935, Turkey was becoming an industrial society based on the Western European model set by Ataturk. However, the gap between Ataturk's goals and the achievements of the socio-political structure of the country had not yet been closed. Ataturk's name is associated with four women: Eleni Karinte, Fikriye Hanım, Dimitrina Kovachova, and Latife Yusaki. After the Turkish army entered Izmir in 1922, Ataturk met Latife while staying at the house of her father, the shipping magnate Muammer Yusakzade, later Yusakli. Latife fell in love with Ataturk. Again, the extent to which this was reciprocated is unknown, but Ataturk was impressed by Latife's intellect. She was a graduate of the Sorbonne and was studying English in London when the war broke out. On the 29th of January 1923, they were married. Latife was jealous of Fikriye and demanded that she leave the house in Kankaya. Fikriye was devastated and immediately left in a carriage. According to official accounts, she shot herself with a pistol Ataturk had given her as a present. The triangle of Ataturk, Fikriye, and Latife became the subject of a manuscript by Ataturk's close friend, Salah Bozic, though the work remained unpublished until 2005. Latife was briefly and literally the face of the new Turkish woman, appearing in public in Western clothing with her husband. However, their marriage was not happy. After frequent arguments, the two were divorced on the 5th of August 1925. During his lifetime, Ataturk adopted 13 children, a boy and 12 girls. Of these, the most famous is Sabiha Gökçen, Turkey's first female pilot and the world's first female fighter pilot. Ataturk's religious beliefs became a subject of debate. Some researchers have emphasized that his discourses about religion are periodic and that his positive views related to this subject are limited in the early 1920s. Some Turkish sources claim he was a devout Muslim. However, according to other sources, Ataturk himself was an agnostic, i.e. non-doctrinaire deist, or even an atheist, who was anti-religious and anti-Islamic in general. Throughout most of his life, Ataturk was a moderate to heavy drinker, often consuming half a liter of raki a day. He also smoked tobacco, predominantly in the form of cigarettes. During 1937, indications that Ataturk's health was worsening started to appear. In early 1938, while on a trip to Yalova, he suffered from a serious illness. He went to Istanbul for treatment, where he was diagnosed with cirrhosis. During his stay in Istanbul, He made an effort to keep up with his regular lifestyle, but eventually succumbed to his illness. He died on the 10th of November 1938, at the age of 57, in the Dolmabahce Palace. Ataturk's funeral called forth both sorrow and pride in Turkey, and 17 countries sent special representatives, while 9 contributed armed detachments to the cortege. Ataturk's remains were originally laid to rest in the Ethnography Museum of Ankara, but they were transferred on the 10th of November 1953, 15 years after his death, in a 42-ton sarcophagus to a mausoleum overlooking Ankara, Anıtkabir. In his will, Ataturk donated all of his possessions to the Republican People's Party, provided that the yearly interest of his funds would be used to look after his sister Makbul and his adopted children, and fund the higher education of İsmet İnönü's children. The remainder was willed to the Turkish Language Association and the Turkish Historical Society. Kemal Ataturk is commemorated by many memorials throughout Turkey, such as the Ataturk International Airport in Istanbul, the Ataturk Bridge over the Golden Horn Halak, the Ataturk Dam, and Ataturk Stadium. Ataturk statues have been erected in all Turkish cities by the Turkish government, and most towns have their own memorial to him. His face and name are seen and heard everywhere in Turkey. His portrait can be seen in public buildings, in schools, on all Turkish lira banknotes, and in the homes of many Turkish families. At 9:05 a.m. on every 10th of November, at the exact time of Ataturk's death, most vehicles and people in the country's streets pause for 1 minute in remembrance. In 1951, the Democrat Party controlled Turkish parliament led by Prime Minister Adnan Menderes. Despite being the conservative opposition to Ataturk's own Republican People's Party, issued a law on crimes committed against Ataturk, outlawing insults to his memory, hatirasına alenen hakare, and destruction of objects representing him. The demarcation between a criticism and an insult was defined as a political argument, and the Minister of Justice, a political position, was assigned in Article 5 to execute the law rather than the public prosecutor. A government website was created to denounce websites that violate this law. In 2010, the French-based NGO Reporters Without Borders objected to the Turkish laws protecting the memory of Ataturk, arguing that they contradict the current European Union standards of freedom of speech in news media. In 1981, the centennial of Ataturk's birth, his memory was honored by the United Nations and UNESCO, which declared it the Ataturk Year in the world and adopted the resolution on the Ataturk Centennial. The Ataturk Monument in Mexico City on Paseo de la Reforma. The Ataturk Monument in Baku, Azerbaijan. The Ataturk Monument in Almaty, Kazakhstan. The Ataturk Memorial in Wellington, New Zealand, which also serves as a memorial to the Anzac troops who died at Gallipoli. The Ataturk Memorial in the Place of Honor on Anzac Parade in Canberra, Australia. And squares called the Plaza Mustafa Kemal Ataturk in Santiago, Chile, and the Largo Mustafa Kemal Ataturk in Rome, Italy are a few examples of Ataturk memorials outside Turkey. He has roads named after him in several countries, such as the Kemal Ataturk Marg in New Delhi, India, the Kemal Ataturk Avenues in Dhaka and Chittagong in Bangladesh, the Ataturk Avenue in the heart of Islamabad, Pakistan, the Ataturk Road in the southern city of Larkana in Sindh, Pakistan, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk Street in Tunis, Tunisia, Mustafa Kemal Ataturk Street in the Naco district of Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic, and the street and Memorial Ataturk in the Amsterdam Noord borough of Amsterdam, Netherlands. In addition, the entrance to Princess Royal Harbour in Albany, Western Australia is named Ataturk Channel. There are many statues and streets named after Ataturk in northern Cyprus. Despite his radical secular reforms, Ataturk remained broadly popular in the Muslim world. He is remembered for being the creator of a new, fully independent Muslim country at a time of encroachment by Christian powers, and for having prevailed in a struggle against Western imperialism. When he died, the All India Muslim League eulogized him as a truly great personality in the Islamic world, a great general, and a great statesman, declaring that his memory would inspire Muslims all over the world with courage, perseverance, and manliness. The range of Ataturk's admirers extends from the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, his opponent in World War I, to the German Nazi leader and dictator Adolf Hitler, who called Ataturk a star in the darkness. Some presidents of the United States, including Franklin D. Roosevelt and John F. Kennedy, also respected Ataturk. President Kennedy paid tribute to Ataturk in 1963 on the 25th anniversary of his death. As a role model that encouraged national sovereignty, Ataturk was especially revered in countries of the so-called Third World, which saw him as the pioneer of independence from colonial powers. The leaders of such countries included Ataturk's Iranian contemporary Reza Shah Pahlavi, the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, the Tunisian President Habib Bourguiba, and the Egyptian President Anwar Sadat. The Pakistani poet and philosopher Muhammad Iqbal and the Bangladeshi national poet Qazi Nazrul Islam wrote poems in his honor. The 12th International Women Conference was held in Istanbul, Turkey on the 18th of April 1935, and Egyptian nationalist feminist Huda Sha'arawi was elected by the conference as the vice president of the International Women's Union. Huda considered Ataturk as a role model for her actions and wrote in her memoirs, "After the Istanbul conference ended, we received an invitation to attend the celebration held by Mustafa Kemal Ataturk, the liberator of modern Turkey, and I said, if the Turks considered you the worthiness of their father and they called you Ataturk, I say that this is not enough, but you are for us Ataturk, father of the East." Its meaning did not come from any female head of delegation, and thanked me very much for the great influence, and then I begged him to present us with a picture of His Excellency for publication in the journal L'Egyptien. In the epilogue of Grey Wolf, Mustafa Kemal, an intimate study of a dictator, first published in 1932 and the first biography of Ataturk published in his lifetime, H.C. Armstrong wrote these words, "He is a man born out of due season, an anachronism, a throwback to the Tartars of the steppes, a fierce elemental force of a man." Had he been born in the centuries when all Central Asia was on the move, he would have ridden out with Suleiman Shah Sikh under the banner of the Grey Wolf, and with the heart and instincts of a grey wolf. With his military genius and his ruthless determination unweakened by sentiments, loyalties, or moralities, he might well have been a Tamerlane or a Genghis Khan riding at the head of great hordes of wild horsemen, conquering countries, devouring and destroying cities, and filling in the intervals of peace between campaigns with wild and hideous orgies of wine and women. However, Ataturk's acclaim is not universal. As the leader of the national movement of 1919 to 1923, Ataturk was described by the Allies and Istanbul journalist Ali Kemal, who believed the liberation efforts would fail and cause a more severe punishment by the Allies, as a bandit chief. Lord Balfour in this context called him the most terrible of all the terrible Turks. Mustafa Kemal Ataturk was born in 1881 in Salonika, now Thessaloniki, in what was then the Ottoman Empire. His father was a minor official and later a timber merchant. When Ataturk was 12, he was sent to military school and then to the military academy in Istanbul, graduating in 1905. In 1911, he served against the Italians in Libya and then in the Balkan Wars 1912-1913. He made his military reputation repelling the Allied invasion at the Dardanelles in 1915. In May 1919, Ataturk began a nationalist revolution in Anatolia, organizing resistance to the peace settlement imposed on Turkey by the victorious Allies. This was particularly focused on resisting Greek attempts to seize Smyrna and its hinterland. Victory over the Greeks enabled him to secure revision of the peace settlement in the Treaty of Lausanne. In 1921, Ataturk established a provisional government in Ankara. The following year, the Ottoman Sultanate was formally abolished and, in 1923, Turkey became a secular republic with Ataturk as its president. He established a single-party regime that lasted almost without interruption until 1945. He launched a program of revolutionary social and political reform to modernize Turkey. These reforms included the emancipation of women, the abolition of all Islamic institutions, and the introduction of Western legal codes, dress, calendar, and alphabet, replacing the Arabic script with a Latin one. Abroad, he pursued a policy of neutrality, establishing friendly relations with Turkey's neighbors. In 1935, when surnames were introduced in Turkey, he was given the name Ataturk, meaning father of the Turks. He died on the 10th of November 1938. I stop at this point today. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and keep exploring the world's incredible stories. Soon we will publish Mustafa İsmet İnönü, the second president of Turkey. From the 11th of November 1938 to the 22nd of May 1950. Thank you for watching.